You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
Obviously, with your experience, focusing with the rent to own, and then you said you've done all different types of projects. And obviously, I personally think rent to own is the most creative strategy out there, because you are putting a couple of different things together, investors and clients, homeowners. But maybe something that you can share, one of your most creative projects, and it doesn't have to be a lease option, but it could be any of the projects that you've done that you're proud of and said, hey, you know what, I really challenged myself. We overcame some obstacles. And it ended up being a great deal. So is there one project or some projects that you think that way?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch that kind of pop into my head. One of them was a rent-own deal early, about 4 months after I quit my day job, and I had an investor lined up. We made money in the buy. It was on MLS. We made money in the buy, and it was a sweet deal. And my investor, can't remember why, I had to back out at the last minute. We had it under contract. And so Kiyosaki's, I think his first book, he talks about take the word I can't out of your vocabulary. And so my old self would have been like, we can't do the deal. I can't get an investor. Like, everybody was in a time crunch. The owners had to sell quickly. But instead, up on my whiteboard, I wrote, how can I? And then I started to list all these ideas of how, how I could structure this deal. Brainstorming, often a lot of your brainstorming ideas are crazy or stupid, but it's often those ones that will generate the best ideas that you can actually act on. So I think I had 7 things on there. One of them was find another investor, and the other one was qualify for the mortgage myself, right? And for those of you who've ever quit your day job and are new into owning a company, recognize that typically banks, traditional lenders, won't lend to you until you got 2 years of good history and an upward trend. Well, I was 4 months into my self-proprietorship. So anyways, I started pursuing that one. I was still pursuing the other ideas, but this one I pursued. And long and short of it, I got the deal done with traditional bank financing in my company name. And there's a whole, that was quite a story in the midst of that. But anyways, I got that deal done when really everybody around me was saying it can't be done. And that deal generated me about 80 grand as a no money down deal, because I had other investor capital in, but I ended up qualifying for the mortgage. It netted me about 80 grand and my investor about 70 grand.
That is awesome. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs in every single strategy, and there's going to be some really awesome wins and some really awesome stories from it. Mm-hmm. So, somebody that's starting out that wants to get into rent to own, like, what are some, I know there's many things, but what are like maybe the top 3 things that if they want to be somebody that does this without using any of their own money and they want to find investors and bring tenant buyers, like, what are 3 things that you recommend they can do to move their way through to get started?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great question. Well, start off just by educating yourself. And there's a couple books out there. There's lots of information online, but don't follow 3 or more different people on the same subject, because your brain will just be scattered unless they're from the same team. But, I've been at spots in my life where I've been following different people, and it's just like, they've all got great stuff to say and they're all finding success, but try to mix that in the pot and get results, like, forget about it. Right. So, get some information and then take action on it. Right. Because what most people will do is they'll get information, and then they're just overwhelmed with, I don't even know where to start. So if you get some information, like I send out some free guides. There's other investors that do the same. When you get that information and it's like, there's a couple aha moments in there, take action on those ideas and actually go out and start practicing them. If it's making a phone call, knocking on a door, posting an ad, that's where you're going to really start to learn. Now you can start implementing stuff And when you learn new stuff beyond that, then you can step on the next step, right? As opposed to just having a ton of information. Now you don't know where to start. That would be the biggest thing, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that fact, don't follow more than 3 people. I think I'm going to start implementing that, because you get all different types of opinions, and different, everybody has their own way of doing things. You need to find your own, taking the best and worst from other people and making that into your own version of that. So now again, you're coaching, working with a lot of clients these days. What are some of the mistakes or things that you're seeing that come up more often than not, with newer students, whether it's rent to own, other strategies, but they're coming out of the gate, and maybe they're getting a little discouraged, or maybe it's not happening as quickly as they wanted to. But what are some of the mistakes, or what are some of the obstacles that you've helped alleviate for some of those coaching clients that you work with?
Yeah, I think, a big one is taking regular, consistent action, in that people will be super pumped, super excited. They'll dive into stuff, and then they'll hit a roadblock. And that roadblock could be someone close to them saying, "Oh, you're stupid. This can't be done," or "You got to start making some phone calls, and you can't do that," or you feel like you can't do that. And it's just like, you got to push through that stuff. And so like the way I've got my stuff set up, my coaching program is like, stuff is built upon each other, right? So week 2, you'll miss some stuff if you haven't watched week 1. And so lots of people want to jump in, just, give me the contracts. And so I've had some students who've got success, but they've set stuff up incorrectly because they didn't watch, week 3 or whatever. And so it's about, taking the time to understand what you're building, as opposed to, buying that really nice $1,000 wardrobe at IKEA and go, well, I know all these parts, I can put it together. And 10 minutes into it's like, oh, crap, I got to start this whole thing over again because there's a piece that I put on backwards, or I missed it. And that's the same with doing this, right? It's about following the strategy, following the steps to get it done, successfully. And
Yeah.
so that combined with, just wanting stuff done immediately, and just recognizing that, it's not a 100-yard dash to get your first deal done, especially if you want to get it done right.
Yeah, absolutely. Steps are important, and following them. So team is also very important, and having the right people on your team. When it comes to this particular strategy, are you able to share, who, just profession wise, your team members ideally would be? And then maybe if you could do a second part on, how do you work with them throughout, whether it's 3 years or 5 years, the whole process along the way, to ensure that that tenant buyer will essentially close on that property.
Yeah. So you're asking team for myself to get a deal done?
Yeah. So the team members, like it could be a mortgage broker, a lawyer as an example, and then, like communicating. I mean, I guess like with a mortgage broker, for example, like as an idea, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but they would likely be having these ongoing conversations with the tenant buyer to make sure that by the end they're going to be closing. I mean, that's an example, but you let me know, because you're the expert in all of this.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, especially early on, someone that I could go to who knew how to do these deals successfully, right? Like, I don't know a lot of lawyers who know how to do rent-own successfully, just because they don't do them. And they'll often do a piece here and there. And whereas, my contracts have been built over years and have been through literally hundreds of lawyers, because people look at them stuff. But to have a lawyer that is on my team that understands now what I'm doing, because I've taught a couple different lawyers how I do these, and how they're successful. So obviously, yes, a lawyer, you need to have someone who not only understands what you're trying to do, but also has got your back if you run into a roadblock.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.